have no clue at all if anyone needs to hear this, and I'm pretty sure there are many of you who don't want to hear my topic. But too bad, you're here. You're going to suffer through it.
Sick.
I need to hear it.
Thanks,
Yeah.
I imagine a 4-hour drive would make you feel that way. To whom it concerns, life sucks. I want a refund. Except that's not really possible now, is it? The closest we can get to a refund on life is death. And I certainly don't want that. No. In wanting to make use of nature's return policy, it's more that there are periods where we wish we had never been at all, where the suffering is so great that we feel pressured not to be anymore. And but there's a categorical asymmetry between death and non-existence in the sense of never having been. For someone who is never born can know nothing of the pain of existence nor its pleasures. But for those of us with the dubious luck to live, we get the full Monty. Pain, pleasure, love and laughter, heartbreaking grief, and most importantly, death. That ultimate ill which befalls all living creatures. Death is categorically, undeniably bad. It's something that we try to avoid thinking of. Death, as Shakespeare put it, puzzles the will and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. For, as living creatures, the worst thing that could come to us is annihilation. The inability to continue experiencing things, good or bad. And that's what death evokes in us, fear of annihilation. For it's not a fear that there is something after death, which makes its specter so imposing, but that, as man suspects in the deepest corners of his heart, there is nothing. The certainty that some have that there is something more awaiting us beyond this life is not certainty of fact, but of conviction. And even the most steadfast conviction is not unassailable to doubt. That the very possibility exists that only annihilation awaits us at the end of life is enough. Hence, it lurks in our mind. Despite this, however, we find it fully within our reach to laugh at death, to, with jokes and jests, jibes and jabs, poke at this most terrifying of realities and make light its horror. All this despite the fact that death is very much not funny. How? Well, to begin with, there's a difference between the fact of death or the fact of murder, the fact of life's horrors, and how we experience them in jokes. Death, as a reality, is a real thing with real consequences that will and truly affect us, and never in as positive a way as to make absolve it of its badness. But the jokes, these are fictions. The people and events in a joke are placeholders, interchangeable for their lack of reference to any person or thing in the world. They're formulaic, even as they speak to realities. When we talk of Sherlock Holmes dying, it is quite different from how we talk of our beloved pet dying. For Holmes, tales of his death are greatly exaggerated. As a fictional character, he's also still alive. As in the stories where he's battling Moriarty or solving capers, they all exist simultaneously with each other. Fictional beings, it turns out, are much like those people never born. They're mere hypotheticals, and the reference to them is reference to hypothetical worlds. Therefore, to talk of them being alive is to talk about them existing at all, just in the mind, nothing more, which is quite aside from how we talk about actual people. My dead dog Molly, however, once did exist in a way that Holmes never did, but now, as a shadow of memory, exists only as Holmes does. Thus, in death, something is lost. Jokes, in general, play with our expectations and beliefs. They build expectations using those beliefs only to undercut them. This reveals tensions between and within our beliefs, and jokes about serious subjects such as death depend on those beliefs, prey on them. It is this incongruity between the beliefs surrounding death and how we encounter it in the world that jokes about death tease. For dark humor, this takes the form of demonstrating those tensions in those beliefs that we hold tightly to, which go into all of the force and structure how we experience things, even if it doesn't match with what really is. These types of beliefs reflect what and how it is that we value. Our beliefs spread out as something like a spider web, never existing in total isolation from each other. And like a spider web, what affects or sticks to one thread reverberates out and impacts other beliefs nearby. And like the spider on its web, we respond to those reverberations because what affects our beliefs calls to our attention. As I said before, dark jokes, death humor, tend to be framed as fiction. So when and where they fail, it's often the result of lacking the epistemic distance necessary to appreciate the joke as a joke, assuming, for the moment, that all other conditions standard to joking are met. It's not inappropriate timing, right mood, etc. This typically occurs in one of two ways. First, an inability to remove the fictional context from real-life situations because it strikes a chord with something that has affected or is impacting us in an important way, so that we fail to treat the joke as a joke and react violently to the emotions it provokes, or, alternatively, an inability or unwillingness to let our beliefs get out of the way, so to speak. In neither of these cases is it necessarily a conscious decision to react that way, nor is it the joke structure that makes it unfunny. It's life getting in the way. So this leads to the question, isn't it wrong to mock something so serious? No, it's not. Yet for death and many other topics, there are those who believe we shouldn't. That categorically they are not funny. This, I believe, is a grave mistake, pun intended. Humor of all kinds is a great philosophical tool for self-reflection. Because while humor can be uncritical, it is never passive. Those beliefs are engaged when they're called forth and undercut. So what we joke and laugh about reveals things about ourselves, beliefs, principles, and even where we are right now in life. You can learn a lot about yourself by what you laugh at. But to not be able to laugh at the darker elements of life, at all, those things that by their very nature make us uncomfortable or are truly worried, that is to give power to our fear of them. Laughing changes nothing of their nature, nor by itself does it undermine the seriousness of the subjects which we mock. The truly horrid things in life will still be bad, but it does make those horrors more bearable. It's okay to laugh and grieve. And this value of dark humor, I believe, is priceless. Whether it be life itself or the principles we hold so dear, if we cannot laugh at them, then we risk being bogged down by them, stuck in the muck and mire of everyday life. And certain mental distance is needed to avoid being dragged down by the drudgery of the everyday as much as the rarer true horrors of life. I don't know if death is the next great adventure or what have you. What I'm certain of is that all we're guaranteed is this life. And life's messy and full of absurdities. But nothing about it is so absurd or so horrific that we can't laugh away the tension. So we should be able to laugh at life, because to laugh is to live. And in the words of the late great philosopher Robin Williams, to live